What defines Sofia Coppola's films? Is it the dreamy pastel colors, the keen attention to detail, the handheld cinematography that seems to float around the characters? All of these elements work together to create the distinct, dreamlike feel in Coppola's films. However, this aesthetic reaches far beyond the idea of a visual trademark. Coppola's visuals are carefully constructed to provide insight into the inner workings of her characters. She has proven to have an incredible ability of showing style and characterization through visual design.
So that's really the starting point after I write the script, is sitting down with the art department and cinematographer and starting to look at references and talk about what the look of the world is. Convey the story because it's a visual medium. How do you tell the story through the visuals?
In this video essay, we will be looking at 3 of Coppola's most iconic films: The Virgin Suicides, Lost in Translation, and Marie Antoinette. The Virgin Suicides was Coppola's debut feature film. The film follows a teenage boy and his friends on their quest to uncover the secrets of the Lisbon sisters, 5 extremely sheltered teenage girls. Coppola's direction of the film avoids the expected coming-of-age tropes, especially when grappling with the subject of death. Coppola adapts a clever, youthful style to the film while still packing it with visual subtext. Even the title card is styled in a manner reminiscent of doodles in the margins of a notebook. The coloration of the film plays a substantial role in the subtext of the story. The opening of the film is comprised of warmly lit B-roll showing the dreamy suburbia of Grosse Pointe, Michigan in 1974. The warmth comes to a sharp halt when we instantly cut to the cold, desaturated bathroom where Cecilia Lisbon floats in a bathtub of her own blood. Coppola frequently uses the color green as a symbol throughout the film. In a scene following Cecilia's suicide, there is an assembly at school in which pamphlets detailing statistics about suicide are distributed. The narrator notes how it was believed green was cheerful, but not too cheerful, certainly better than red. And then, toward the end of the film, when the boys find the bodies of the remaining 4 Lisbon sisters, they move through rooms with green walls, and when the bodies are transported from the house, each of the girls is covered with a green sheet. It's rather ironic that Coppola chooses to use green to symbolize the deaths of the Lisbon girls, as green is frequently seen as the color of life, renewal, and energy. Coppola's choice to use an unexpected color as a symbol may stand as an example of a theme presented in the film, that things can always change without warning.
You're not even old enough to know how bad life gets.
Obviously, Doctor. You've never been a 13-year-old girl.
The Virgin Suicides shows Coppola's constant aim to portray images that explore the tension between the internal and external. Lost in Translation is no exception when examining Coppola's style as a filmmaker. The film tells the story of 2 Americans, washed-up actor Bob and neglected college graduate Charlotte, who form a connection while visiting Tokyo. Lost in Translation is characterized by its nuanced storytelling. Coppola approaches the story with subtlety and care that shows in the development of the characters and narrative. Charlotte and Bob's relationship sparks from mutual insomnia that has them bumping into each other at the hotel bar at all hours of the night. The film is presented in a way that clearly emphasizes the perspective of its protagonists. Throughout the story, Bob and Charlotte express their constant feelings of isolation, and this is brilliantly reflected in the visual design of the film, notably in the framing of the characters. Both Bob and Charlotte are depicted as being separated from their surroundings. In a scene early in the film, Bob is emphasized in a medium shot showing him towering over businessmen in a tightly packed elevator. This shot not only emphasizes the psychological otherness of Bob while he's in a foreign country, but also physically isolates him. In contrast to the elevator scene, which blurs the lines of claustrophobia and personal space, the impression of Charlotte getting lost in the city of Tokyo is frequently shown. There are several instances in which the camera tracks Charlotte through the crowded city streets. She stands out as a result of her blonde hair. The motif of separation is especially emphasized once Charlotte and Bob come together. In such scenes, Charlotte and Bob are shot in shallow depth of field, essentially reducing their surroundings to background noise which they tune out. The frame purposely cuts off other characters, emphasizing the growing bond between the protagonists. In addition, Lost in Translation has a distinctively slow pace, which ultimately contributes to the authenticity of the relationship it explores. Both protagonists are established as characters who do not feel they're getting all they can out of life. The pace emphasizes the care that Charlotte and Bob put into the development of their relationship. Film editor Sarah Flack utilized long takes to emphasize the monotony Charlotte and Bob simultaneously experience in their lives. While the film can be accused of having a flat narrative, its slow burn style conveys to the audience the sense of alienation and isolation the characters experience. Language is perhaps the most noticeable of storytelling tools in the film. As a result of Coppola's choice to exclude English dubbing for any Japanese dialogue in the film, language stands as another representation of disconnection to the protagonists. For example, even when a character tries to translate a piece of Japanese dialogue to Bob, it comes out broken and incomplete, showing his lack of understanding.
君の瞳に乾杯。サントリータイム。
He wants you to turn, look in camera. Okay?
That's all he said?
The viewer is thereby put into a similar situation since both Charlotte and Bob are given the same state of knowledge, stimulating the effects of a clash in culture. The film culminates with the message that Charlotte and Bob were merely seeking something familiar in their time of uncertainty and confusion. Finally, let's look at Marie Antoinette, the unconventional biopic which is definitely Coppola's most daring film.
All eyes will be on you.
The film essentially describes the famed French queen as being no different than a modern teenager. The film is a clever mixture of old and new and exhibits a postmodern approach to the subject. The film's purpose is not to inform the audience about the politics of pre-revolutionary France, but to entertain the story of a young woman finding her place in the world.
You know, you always try to make it personal and try to give personalities to the characters from people you know or aspects of yourself, and try to relate to the characters even though it's such a different time, and try to put yourself into it.
The story is told from the perspective of 14-year-old Marie Antoinette, and that perspective, just like in Coppola's other films, uses visual cues to communicate with the audience. Handheld cinematography is frequent, making for a lively, free-spirited feeling. After all, while Marie is the Dauphine of France, she is also a teenage girl. Color and cinematography most effectively play a part in showing the arc of Marie's character. The exposition of the film is primarily composed of bland, dull colors. The landscape seems on the verge of rotting even, the sky is muted gray and the trees are bare. Even the other characters around Marie are dressed solely in cream, black, and gray. Longer takes are utilized in a manner which emphasizes the lack of excitement Marie feels in her life. Only when Marie arrives at the Palace of Versailles do the colors on the screen appear more saturated and does the pacing speed up. Immediately upon her arrival, Marie sees numerous French citizens all dressed impeccably and in bright pinks, yellows, and blues. This shift in coloration visually exemplifies the immense change in Marie's life and thus a turning point in the story. As the film progresses and Marie begins her life as Queen of France, the pacing substantially changes. Quicker cuts occur, allowing the viewer to take in the seemingly endless material things in the palace. The second act of the film culminates with scenes displaying Marie's greed and, in turn, her reckless, hedonistic, and indulgent behavior. The film is tactically structured to reflect the progression of Marie's character in the film, consistent with how the literary and visual design tell the story. Coppola made a risky yet innovative decision in the sound design of the film, using modern pop and rock music opposite of what the audience might expect. While Coppola has faced criticism for her choice of contemporary music, it simultaneously serves as an integral part of developing Marie's character. The use of contemporary music symbolizes the comparisons of then and now that Coppola makes in the film. Throughout the film, Marie acts like a teenager more often than not, and the use of contemporary music helps make an explicit comparison to modern girls growing up. For example, in a scene midway through the film, Marie's getting dressed with her friends while Bow Wow Wow's I Want Candy plays. The scene is filled with close-up shots on the endless luxuries in Marie's room: jeweled shoes, painted fans, hand-embroidered gowns, and impeccably frosted pastries. The scene shows Marie's want for material possessions, a theme which is commonly drawn upon in the film. Had Coppola chosen a period-accurate piece of music, audience would likely not have the same reaction to the nature of Marie's character. The pieces of modern music highlight the intricacies which are present in Marie's state of mind, including greed, passion, and discouragement. While Coppola could have chosen to deviate the story from Marie herself so as to realistically portray pre-revolutionary France, she instead adopts an oblique and anachronistic point of view. Marie Antoinette explores the tribulations many teenage girls face growing up: acceptance, self-indulgence, and irresponsibility, just with exponentially higher stakes. The film is structured in a way that the motivation is to explore a young woman's mind, which results in an impressionistic yet relatable telling of the opulence of pre-revolutionary France.
This is ridiculous.
This, madame, is Versailles.
Coppola doesn't ask audiences to take Marie Antoinette as the queen she might have been, but as what she probably was, a young woman who failed to understand her adult responsibility. As a director, Sofia Coppola is someone who successfully matches her thematic developments with a calculated stylistic approach. While she has drawn her share of critics, it's evident that Coppola has merit as a filmmaker as a result of her thoughtful storytelling techniques and willingness to take risks.
It's how I know that I'm interested in stories about identity and finding your own place or identity in the world that you were born into, or that you were, that you didn't choose.
In creating her own artistic approach to cinema, Coppola has created multiple cinematic worlds that are defined by fine art and photography inspirations, as opposed to the typical patterns seen in films. Sofia herself said it best: "I don't want my movies to feel like movies, I want them to feel like life." My movies are not about being, but about becoming.